are defying their employer, Fire and Emergency New Zealand, running a high-profile campaign alleging that bad management and understaffing will soon cost lives. With talks deadlocked, Newshub Nation can reveal an independent mediator is being brought in. But for the moment, the strike action continues. We're on board the busiest fire truck from the busiest station, Auckland City. It's a morning filled with the most common call-out, the fire alarm.
Perceived as false alarms, but like in this particular case, there was somebody cooking in the room.
Each one has to be treated like a fire, just in case.
It's a confirmed fire until proven otherwise. Yeah.
Auckland City is mainly staffed by long-term career firefighters. Sulu DeVoe is a senior station officer with 44 years' experience and president of the union's Auckland branch.
Well, there are fewer firefighters now than when I started. As an example, we used to have 17 firefighters in here and 4 officers at City Central Fire Station. Now we're down to 10.
National figures obtained by Newshub Nation show career firefighter numbers are the same as 20 years ago. In 2002, there were 1,680 career firefighters. That did increase, then dropped. As of June this year, there were 1,678. The minimum number needed is 1,730. Over the same period, New Zealand's population has increased by 28%. Ron Devlin is the manager for the Te Hiku region, which includes Northland and Auckland. Do you have enough career firefighters in Auckland?
We have 600 career firefighters in Auckland.
Do you have 600?
There are 600 career firefighters in Auckland, or just under.
Numbers provided to the union via the Official Information Act show Auckland staff should be at 547, and in May there were 522. So 522 in May.
Yep.
Is that enough?
It should be enough to get by. I would suggest that the 522 in May was probably affected by the fact that we have a number of people off on the mandatory vaccinations. We have a number of people who are off on COVID leave and other such things.
The union claims staffing is so dire, stations like Onehunga and Parnell haven't been able to staff their trucks.
I've been in this job for 44 years, since the late 1970s. I have never, in that 44 years, seen fire stations shut down because of the lack of staff until this year.
One of the stations was covered from another district.
But that leaves that district uncovered, doesn't it?
Yeah, but there was the capacity to do that. Again, we've got a network of stations and we can move appliances around to make sure that things are covered.
Firefighters also claim some staff are working up to 100 hours a week to plug the gaps. Newshub Nation has seen recent Saturday rosters for 11 Auckland Central stations. On June 18th, 56 people should have been on the daytime shift, but 2 stations, Onehunga and Parnell, had no staff. And of the 48 staff members rostered on, 14 were working overtime. Then last weekend, June 25th, the Remuera and Onehunga trucks were not on the road. Of the 48 firefighters working, 24 were doing overtime, 50% of the staff. Fens admits that's too much, but in a twist, claims when it tried to recruit more firefighters than the minimum staffing needed, known as the establishment level, the union wasn't happy.
Just a year ago, when we were recruiting above establishment to maintain establishment, that was not a popular decision of mine.
Right, so the union didn't want you to...
At that time.
Didn't want you to add numbers? Didn't want you to increase...
To hire above establishment.
And why? And did they say why they didn't?
We didn't really go into the detail of it, but I think, if you can work it out, I guess it comes back down to the fact that, overtime levels.
The Auckland Union rejects any implication and did not want numbers increased, says overtime was never discussed and that Ron Devlin was not part of the discussions. Far from the central city drama, near the beautiful beaches of Hibiscus Coast north of Auckland, there's a different staffing issue. Where there was once farmland, there is now urban intensification.
So we go up to Hatfields Beach.
Former Blackfern, now Silverdale firefighter Becky Wood says she is a lot busier now.
When there's a call out, I probably maybe a quarter of the time we know where we're going. There's just the growth in the area is just huge. It's insane.
With a population of 62,000, the area is served by 2 fire stations, one run by volunteers, the other a mix of career firefighters on weekdays with volunteers on a second truck which also covers evenings and weekends. By comparison, Whanganui has a population of 45,000 and its fire station is crewed 24/7. 2 weeks ago, this house burnt down at the end of Whangaparoa Peninsula. Neighbour Roy McFarlane called it in.
Well, we found ourselves sitting here after the power lines came down, waiting for the fire brigade, thinking, what the heck, they're in Manly, what's taking them so long? Waiting, like, where are the fire brigade? So yes, it was a very long response time.
The nearest fire station at Manly is 6 kilometres away. It's crewed by volunteers and it took them 27 minutes to get there. The career crew in Silverdale is usually 20 minutes away. By chance they were nearby and got there in 12. But the goal is to arrive in 8.
What's it like as a career firefighter knowing that when you go home, that's it for the area, there's no more career firefighters here?
It's a concern. I live in this area and you know, the volunteers do the best that they can, but they can't always turn out.
This is not about whether the volunteer firefighters are doing a good job. Remember, they do it for free and they have to turn out from home or from work. It's about whether the level of resources in Hibiscus Coast actually meets the needs of a growing population.
I think what you've got to understand when it comes to managing fire risk, the population, albeit a small driver, is just one of the drivers. Risk is kind of, I guess, assessed based on a number of different layers. Population being one of them, but it's just one of the small aspects.
So is there any plan to review the Hibiscus Coast?
Not immediately.
Fire and emergency is funded through insurance levies on your car, house and property. Hibiscus Coast raises about $6.3 million in levies each year. The total budget for Silverdale and Manly fire stations in 2021 was $744,000.
The whole part of being a national organisation is to be able to smooth that out across the country so you get an equitable service right across New Zealand. The risk as assessed at the moment in Hibiscus Coast, right, what we have got there, the resourcing that we have got there is adequate to manage the risk that's there.
There are 2 very different pictures being painted. Fenn says the public is not at risk. Response times and targets are being met, both in Hibiscus Coast and in Auckland. Frontline firefighters don't buy it.
There's just no direction, there's no leadership, and it's at a point where we don't want to stand here and yell this out from the rooftops because that's not what we're about, but you know, communities have been shortchanged, full stop.
Former All Black Steve Devine loved being part of a rugby team, and that's why he wanted to join a team serving the community as a firefighter. But he is speaking out because he is worried.
Whatever we do, we just we're right on the brink, and I don't think it should take a death from someone in the community for things to change.
Maybe something will break the deadlock. A third party has been brought in to mediate between Fens and the union. And there's a hint about staff numbers.
Both the union and Fire and Emergency have agreed that there's got to be a discussion on what that staffing model looks like, the ratio model looks like going forward.
Right. Does that mean more firefighters?
I don't really want to get too far into that. If you're going to change the staffing ratios, that is how many people you need to staff a fire plants, then I would suggest that it would seem to me that it probably would alter the numbers.
But the industrial action is not just about staff numbers. There are many other claims. But for now, firefighters are still turning up to every call, even to the cat that's fallen 6 floors from an apartment. It doesn't want to be rescued. Firefighters say they deserve to be.
All right, stay with us. We'll be back after the break.